Hi, we're here with Kristan Hawkins, and the President of Students for Life.
Yes.
And tell us about your conference today.
Sure. Well, today was our National West Coast Conference. We have two conferences every year, one before or after the March for Life in Washington, D.C., and the one here on the West Coast, which we just started a year ago. So this is our second one after the Walk for Life. So we were in Washington, D.C. this week. We marched at the March for Life. We had our national conference, our East Coast conference with 2,300 students, and then we were here yesterday at the Walk for Life, and we had 400 students here today on our West Coast National Conference.
And some of the activities you have throughout the year, you're on college campuses?
We're on college, high school, and med school campuses. We have groups on over 838 campuses across the country.
And do you debate or argue, trying to convince people the pro-life message?
Well, we try to persuade. I don't know if you'd say argue. Sometimes we'll host a debate, or I'll speak at a hostile group or something like that. But the goal is always to persuade in a compassionate and loving way. We train our groups in how to be effective messengers. So how to speak truth to people, but in a way that is effective and compassionate. And so we encourage our groups to hold various activities across, the school year, to engage their peers, have them talk about the issue of abortion, but then also how to help pregnant and parenting students that are right there on their college campus.
And what are some of the bullet points, talking points, to do that kind of engagement you tell the young people?
Well, we actually had a couple of great talks at these two national conferences. One we had on how to be more persuasive and less weird. And it was very basic tips of how, listen, actively listen to people. Don't be thinking about your rebuttal when they're talking to you. Repeat back what people say. Watch your body language when you talk. Make them know that you genuinely care about their opinions and you're listening to what their personal life experiences or beliefs are, and then share your thoughts in a way that is compassionate and is loving.
And when you speak in a quote-unquote hostile environment, how do you handle that? You get nervous?
Every once in a while, I did an event this November at Bowdoin College in Maine. I had 150 students, a packed room, about 30 protesters. No one in the room was pro-life, except for me. So it was a very interesting talk. Even my jokes didn't get laughs because they entered the room thinking I was their enemy. Yeah. And I eventually had to say, guys, lighten up. Like, I'm a pretty decent person. I think you would like me. You're just making me out to be the enemy because you don't agree with me on this issue. And that's, I think, a lot of times when you're on the college campus and you see this pro-life versus pro-abortion debate, you demonize the other side. And so we're really trying to, change hearts and minds, and that means having a productive dialogue with people.
Right. And from the pro-life point of view, we can demonize, as you're saying. What do you tell the young people from that perspective?
I talk to students all the time about, you always want to be the best representative you can be for the pro-life movement. Because when you're on a college campus, when I started my group in high school and I started my group in college, I was therefore deemed the pro-life girl on my campus. So everything I did, everything I said was completely reflective of the pro-life movement. And so these students, they are the pro-life movement on their campus. And that's why it's so important, because they have the greatest chance to reach out to those women in need. Because Planned Parenthood's already there on their college campus, targeting for them for business. And so it's so important that we're there, we're kind of pushing back, changing the dialogue, asking questions, and we're being the best representatives of the movement.
How would you characterize kind of the thinking that maybe a lot of professors are imbuing in the students, and what do you face when you meet a typical young college student?
Well, it depends on the student. A lot of times, though, unfortunately, relativism. We're dealing with there's no moral truth, there's no objective truth, and a lot of times it will come down to a worldview. When the student no longer believes that there is a divine creator, a divine maker that makes human life intrinsically valuable, it makes the pro-life discussion that much harder. Because at that point, to be philosophically sound, I did this at University of New Mexico a couple weeks ago. I was talking to a student. I had to get him to admit that me killing a frog was equal to killing a human in his worldview, and that if his world, I should be jailed, the same jail punishment for killing a frog as for killing a human, because he could not say how a frog was different in value than a human.
Do you talk directly on that issue about atheism?
Not normally. I mean, we're a secular group. 90% of our students are Catholic. We try to encourage more Protestants to get involved. We do have some agnostics in our groups. It's actually really interesting because we find that a lot of students have, when they get to college, this is usual. They kind of fall away from their faith. They start questioning their faith. They meet friends or sorority sisters or fraternity brothers who start questioning their faith and their beliefs. And so we actually find that a lot of times being in the pro-life group brings them back. It's kind of remarkable. You would think, but they're a secular group. How do they do that? And it's because of that worldview. Once they get into that pro-life movement, first of all, they start coming to conferences like this, and they start hanging out with other Christians. And so they immediately start seeing other people, meeting and becoming friends with other people who share that worldview, but also have those Christian beliefs. But then they have to start asking themselves those hard questions of why are certain things wrong? Why is abortion wrong? Why are humans intrinsically valuable? Because we're made in the image of God. So it's actually we have some unique conversions that happen on college campuses.
Can you tell us about anyone in particular that struck you that kind of makes the work worthwhile?
Well, I mean, a really big one for me is that I'm in RCIA myself right now. So,
oh wow,
there you go. That'll be a pretty big one for me.
What was it that moved you to the Catholic faith?
It's something that, when you're in the pro-life movement and you're a non-denominational Christian, as I have been my whole life, you never really know faithful Catholics. You have a certain perception of who Catholics are. And then you get in the pro-life movement and you realize, wait a minute, this is what Catholics actually believe. You start hanging out, you're talking to people about, and you start asking them questions of, why do you do this? And why would you think that? And when you meet people who can explain their faith, it actually makes a really big difference. And so it's been a long journey for me. It hasn't been, a quick journey, but it's just thinking of, well, why is it that the Catholic Church, how can they always be consistent on these issues, so.
What do you tell, like, the young woman on college campus? She's, maybe wouldn't call herself a feminist, but she's very much for women's rights. What's the argument there?
Well, I just did an interview with ABC, and they kept asking me, so you're for taking away a woman's right to choose, right? And they wanted me on camera saying yes. And I said, you know what? Some choices are wrong. I'm pro-choice for a lot of things. I'm pro-choice in that I think a woman should be able to choose her career, choose what college she goes to, choose her spouse, choose a lot of things. But some choices are wrong. And killing an innocent human life is always wrong. And that's a choice that no one should be able to make. And so, they kept asking the same question, expecting a different answer. And I said, I'm sorry, this is the only answer I can give you.
Well, thanks for chatting with us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. It's great having you here.